On September 1st, 1969, Berkshire County, Massachusetts spent a warm summer evening like any other. But as darkness fell, something strange crossed the skies and changed the community forever. Were they really witnessing something otherworldly, or could it all be explained? Today, we're investigating the first UFO case ever recognized as historically true, the Berkshire UFO Incident. This is Red Web. Welcome back, Task Force, to another episode of Red Web, the podcast all about unsolved mysteries, true crime, and the unknown. I'm your resident mystery enthusiast begging for aliens to be real, Trevor Collins, and joining me hearing this case for the very first time, Alfredo Diaz.
Look, you say begging for aliens to be real, we're also begging for the paranormal to be real. I'm no longer begging for that.
That's true.
Begging for that. I cannot explain what the hell happened during our revisit to Yorktown Memorial Hospital. It makes no sense. And you know what? I don't think anyone's going to be able to explain it. I don't think people are going to believe us. And I don't care because I was there and I know what I experienced. And I care about what I believe in now. And I believe that the paranormal is real because, gee, damn.
Dude, okay, yeah. So Task Force, we're coming right off the heels in real time of recording the episode. It did come out last week, our revisit of Yorktown Memorial Hospital. Go check it out on our YouTube account or wherever you support us. But yeah, dude, Fredo, that was a wild time. And transparently speaking, the linchpin for this falling apart is I have to be a liar. I have to be lying to you and the task force and everybody. And if you've listened to this show for a very long time, you know that and you're going to hear it in this episode, I want to analyze everything because I don't want to just blindly believe. I love it all. I find it so interesting, but I need to find the kernel of truth between all the answers. You know what I mean? That sliver that we can't explain. And that episode, I've never been more uncomfortable with what we actually encountered.
It was, I pushed it.
You pushed it. I got to be just like a guy with headphones on thinking I was just saying things until you told me on the other side. I was part of me was actually kind of removed from the situation until you told me.
Yep. Which is why I had to push things again, just for you to like realize the things that Christian and I were seeing or like noticing or experiencing.
Okay. Yeah.
I just don't. I'm still, I got cleansed and everything, like just in case.
You never know.
Just in case. I just, when you have people that you work with, you have Christian Shane being like, I thought I saw you in the basement or the chapel we're setting up. And that was even before stuff started popping off.
It was the lobby. It was just lobby. Right there in the entrance.
Yeah, just right in the lobby. Just me there when I was outside with Trevor.
First time we walk out of this place, we've got the baby hands lore. We got something like really gentle and nice. It's baby hands, The second time we go, baby hands must have been listening. He's a dedicated task force member because now he's like, I'm going to embody Alfredo and terrify the crew. I wanted to do a ritual where I had the spirit of baby hands jump into my plushie of baby hands. We got too uncomfortable before that even got close to happening.
Yeah, we had to stop the ghost hunt early. We genuinely have to stop it just because, we just
didn't feel good.
How many times you watch a horror movie, you go, idiot? You know what I mean? That was the moment where you're like, idiots, now get out of there. And we did.
Yeah, dude.
Not like, okay, let's bring out the Ouija board. Let's keep pushing it.
Right. Also, like, how do you have ha hee hee right after that too? It was just weird. It was weird.
Yeah, that's true. How do you just go to the top floor and go, all right, lol, 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 lol.
Yeah.
So I believe. Thank you very much.
It only took 5.5 years, but Christian, we got him. But I don't know if I'm happy about it, actually. Because we kind of got us, we
got ourselves. That was an experience for sure.
Yeah, I feel better in the daylight. I feel better in hindsight now. But that is up, like I said, youtube.com/redwebpod. We also have this week coming out at redwebpod.com, our Patreon page. We have our second episode of Case Files, another stretch goal for you, which will be coming out this time early. If you want to watch it on YouTube, it will be a week later, next Wednesday. Speaking of Yorktown Memorial Hospital, exclusively for Task Force members over at redwebpod.com, we will be uploading some bonus stuff from that ghost investigation, some uncut static camera shots if you want to go investigate that stuff and report back with what you see. That will all be available in the coming weeks, again, at redwebpod.com. And then, of course, on Friday, keeping the train of exclusives rolling, we have a movie club for Bring Her Back, a movie almost as disturbing as Fredo's encounter at Yorktown Memorial. But yeah, come listen to the conversation there. We break down the plot, we give our takes, we react to things very much like this podcast, but about some of our favorite horror movies, things that we've wanted to watch for a while, and that was on the list. Also this Friday at 4:30 p.m. Central Time, Alfredo and I are going to be doing a Discord event exclusively for our Patreon members, going over all of your Ghost Hunt Yorktown Memorial Hospital comments, timestamps, questions, and things that you saw. Normally, we record this and then put it out as a video. This time, we're going to live stream it so you can interact with us in the Discord chat. So head over to Patreon, redwebpod.com, and join our Discord so that way you could be part of it. And then everyone else will see that next week on Thursday, November 13th on the YouTube channel. But if you want to see it live, you want to see it early, come support us directly at redwebpod.com. Any other cleansing words, Fredo, before we dive into this case? Berkshire UFO Incident.
Just don't antagonize anything, whether it be up in the stars or down on Earth. You know, just don't.
That's you know what? That goes back to Alfredo Diaz rule number 1. Just don't.
Just don't. Yeah, that is a solid rule. And what did I do? Didn't listen to my own rule.
You just did.
I just did, yeah.
Like Nike, got your rules mixed up. All right. So this one is as it's been called, the Berkshire UFO Incident. And as I indicated, this is considered the first UFO case ever recognized as historically true. There are some technicalities behind that where the governor accidentally signed a thing, and we'll talk about all of the aftermath of this case. But before we do, I'm going to be very transparent about the overview of this, some high-level insights on this particular incident, some very detailed and vivid eyewitness accounts ranging from a few children to a few adults, and then, of course, wrapping up with the aftermath, things that have happened in the immediate aftermath, the modern aftermath, and then some theories that might explain what happened that night, ranging from, of course, the corporeal to the paranormal. Now, this whole incident begins on the night of September 1st, 1969, where over 250 people allegedly reported seeing a UFO in Berkshire County, Massachusetts. Now, this is a lot of witnesses, and this number comes from the data collected by UFO park enthusiasts. UFO Park is the park in Sheffield founded by Tom Reed, who is a gentleman that we will talk about a little bit later. He is one of the eyewitnesses who, when 9 years old, encountered some wild things that night. I also want to say that it's important to note that there are no official records of this sighting being reported to police or news outlets at the time. This lack of documentation, of course, on this case has caused many skeptics to question the validity of this, but there are a lot of conspiracy theories around the lack of reports themselves. Were they erased? Were they not documented? Etc. We'll talk about a little bit of that in the aftermath of everything. But interestingly, and this is kind of the linchpin for this whole incident, there are a lot of key witnesses, and their accounts and the details shared all kind of line up. They line up with other eyewitnesses that they might not have talked to before, that they didn't have interface before then they documented their account of this phenomenon. And due to this fact, and due to the many repeated details, it remains one of the more compelling UFO encounters in the United States for, of course, many believers and some people that are kind of on the fence, that are really interested in discovering if there is something out there.
I can see that just off of the fact of if you had a bunch of different people, different locations, at the same time experiencing the same thing, and recalling it, and it all ends up not having talked to each other, it's super validating.
Right.
You know, even if you're in the same room, it's very validating. But obviously, it's more validating to the world if you have various other people who have not been in the same location.
Yeah, there's a lot of cynicism coding some of these things. And of course, as always, we'll approach these kind of unbiasedly. We're going to lay it all out and then assess the skeptic side and the believer side and see what we find on the other end. But yeah, it is really interesting when taken at face value how much these line up. And these reports do come from people across several of the small towns there in Berkshire County, also called the Berkshires. But I also want to say, like, while modern reports say that 250 people witnessed something that night, More relevant to the 1969 era, it seems that it's closer to 40 people witnessed this UFO. And so the number is kind of in flux. That is the original number. Things change over time, memories change, but also people come forward, as we're going to see on both hands here as we discuss this case. But each witness described what they saw that night as a large disc-shaped object with blinding lights. This object made strange, quick, acrobatic movements in the sky, changing altitude and direction very quickly, faster than they would recognize a modern aircraft of the time, zigzagging through the air in a strange way. But ultimately, when we talk about these reports, you might notice that it's unclear how long this whole ordeal lasted, and we don't know exactly what time these sightings began, though each individual kind of gives their own timeline. And they also try to account for lost minutes or sometimes lost hours, and so there is a little bit of a time blurring, both from the memory side, but also from hard eyewitness testimony sides. We don't have those details. So with this quick overview behind us now, let's dive into a handful of the more vivid experiences and see what we can line up. Of course, this isn't exhaustive by any means, but these are the most interesting, the most vivid encounters, and they really point to some interesting overlaps. And of course, again, we'll explore the potential explanations on the other side. So first up, we're going to start with a young boy named Tom Warner, who was a resident of Great Barrington, and he was just 9 years old at the time of the sightings. He recalls that on the night of September 1st, he was visiting with his neighborhood friends Jane and Debbie Shaw. Debbie and Tom had been spending their time coloring in coloring books, playing and things, when Tom felt the urge to get up and take a look out the window. This was just an urge that suddenly dawned upon him, and he claims that this urge came to him in the form of a voice in his head. And he heard this voice speak loud and clear to him, quote, "You need to go home," end quote. So now frightened, he gets up, he looks out the window, he then turns and tells Debbie he has to go home, right? He's listening to this voice, maybe intuition, and then Debbie asks him why, and in response he says, "I don't know. Maybe God's talking to me from those clouds." Tom then runs outside and he begins sprinting back home, and his home is somewhere nearby in the neighborhood. However, as soon as he set off, he's really not that far from the door. He is running as fast as he can, but he realizes he's not moving. He's pumping his legs and everything, but he seems frozen in place. And when he looks down, he sees his legs are still moving, though he is not going anywhere. Jane then, who is somewhere else in the house, happens to look out the window not long after he left, and she also witnesses this very strange moment. She recalls that he seemed to be running in place for about 5 minutes.
So it seems like there's like telepathic communication going on here, or to some degree of like nudging a person and then their mind, their consciousness in a certain direction, which is interesting, which I'm assuming has to do with like possibly the UFO or aliens. It's just not something you really hear too much about.
If I had to guess, right, based on what I know comes next, it's almost like the UFO, like a tractor beam, like snatched him, allowing his legs to physically move, but like not letting him go anywhere. Almost like the quintessential cow being pulled up into the bright light sort of thing.
Right, yeah.
Because that's kind of close to what happens next. Jane is looking out the window. Tom himself recounts, like, I tried to break this spell. I realized I wasn't moving, so he tries to turn left. But right when he does that, that's when this UFO quickly drops out of the sky. And what was that Jordan Peele movie? I always want to say Don't Look Up, but it's the one, it's Nope, right?
Nope, it's Nope.
The way Jean Jacket, is that the name of that alien? Kind of swoops down out of the sky. Ah, man, I'm just picturing that, and that is horrendous.
God, I need to rewatch that movie. It's so wild when it just swoops everyone up and then the blood and everything comes bringing. I was like, what the? Okay, this is very clearly dangerous.
Right.
Not like, hey, we come in peace. Nope.
Yeah, literally, nope. I love that iteration of some UFO. It's not like aliens coming down, it's a creature. So he turns left, he's trying to somehow get the move on, it's been a few minutes, and he sees this craft drop out of the sky. A beam of light emanates from this craft, shines onto him, and as he's engulfed in the light, he claims that his hands are jerked back behind his body and his chest is almost pulled forward as if he's being pulled up into the air, kind of from his chest. And then there's a flash, and Jane describes him as kind of disappearing. She sees this light shine on him for one moment, and then the next, he's completely gone.
So a full-blown abduction.
Yeah. It's so vivid too. I'm just like, I'm obsessed with these details, but we'll get into, oh man, the overlaps are really interesting. Theories to come. I'm so eager to talk about those. But so now he's disappeared. He then recounts being on a ship, some strange metallic ship. He sees another child from the Berkshire County area. Her name is Melanie Kirchdorfer, and she's crouching to his right. He remembers looking at her. She looks back at him. He sees fear in her eyes, and then he remembers being back on Earth, laying down on the ground in the star position, arms out, legs splayed. Suddenly, like, it's almost like time dilates or shifts, like he just suddenly is back on the ground. And as he's looking up from the ground, he recounts the beam of light still being on him at this point. His brother is now suddenly behind him, shouting at him to run, and he tries to run, but he couldn't. He feels paralyzed by this beam emanating from this craft. Tom then claims that he heard a voice in his head once again say something else. It says, "I'll be done in a minute." And sure enough, soon after he hears this, he waits a little bit, the beam turns off, the UFO seems to vanish, and now he can move once again. And Jane is still kind of looking out the window. She claims that when he finally arrived back on the ground, about 7 minutes had passed. And Tom had a hard time describing what exactly he saw during this incident. So instead, I don't know when exactly, I think this was a few years later, it might have been under hypnosis, but suffice to say, he painted an image of what he saw that day from a third-person perspective. And I do have that painting for you, if you want to take a look at that.
Let me take a look at this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems very, I'll be done with you soon, or whatever. What did you say? That just...
I'll be done in a minute.
Oh my... Oh,
like,
it's creepy, man. There's some creepy ass aliens.
Yeah, what are you doing? What are you, like, investigating my lungs? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, this is painting, watercolors and stuff like that, of a silver UFO. It's got like a interesting kind of little like orange, blue, brown, tan
right
dots that kind of
are
the rim of the UFO split in half. Light that beams down, and there's a person at the bottom.
It's like sparkly rainbow around the edges or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Task Force, if you want to see this painting, we'll put this in the video version of the podcast, but also on our socials at RedWebPod.
But yeah, that's a painting of someone getting beamed up for sure.
That's a good painting. That's why I was like, was this a 9-year-old? But I do believe, like I said, Kat was looking into this one in particular, and she thinks it was a few years later, though it was kind of difficult to discern when exactly. But very interesting. I always love a good visual. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Factor. Fall always feels like a reset between back to school, busier routines, and shorter days. Finding time to cook can be tough. That's where Factor comes in. Their chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals make it easy to stay on track and enjoy something comforting and delicious, no matter how hectic the season gets. Choose from their wider selection of weekly meal options, including premium seafood choices like salmon and shrimp at no extra cost. From more choices to better nutrition, that's why 97% of customers say Factor helped them live a healthier life. Feel the difference no matter your routine. In my busy life, I have definitely used Factor for many lunches when I'm busy or on the go, recording and whatever else. When you're just busy, you want to be able to eat something that is going to fill you up and you have the peace of mind that it's going to be nutritious and it's going to hit all your macros. Whether you're working out or you're cutting calories or what have you, having something tasty and healthy ready to go is always very nice, and I appreciate Factor for that. Eat smart at factormeals.com/redweb50off and use code redweb50off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code REDWEB50OFF at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box plus breakfast for 1 year. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Shopify. Task Force, you know the drill, because if you've shopped online, chances are you've heard me talk about the powerful Shop Pay button. Every time you check out, you see that very convenient button, and it makes shopping so incredibly easy. Well, you know by now that thing right there, that's Shopify, baby. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it, because Shopify makes it so incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands potentially like yours just getting started. Shopify gives you that leg up from day one with hundreds of beautiful, ready-to-go templates to express that brand style that you got going on. You have a strong brand, you want to stand by it, and you don't even need to worry about coding at all. Tackle all those important tasks in one convenient place, from inventory to payments to analytics, all that good stuff. Spread your brand's word with built-in marketing tools and email tools that help you find and keep new customers. And you know that iconic purple Shop Pay button. It's used by millions of businesses around the world. Well, it is why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. Your customers already love it. In my experience, setting up with Shopify is a breeze. I know how daunting setting up an e-commerce platform can be, how to get your store started. I don't know how to code a website. How do I make it look professional? Well, let me tell you that Shopify makes it so incredibly easy to do this, and I can't recommend them enough if this is something you're looking to do. So if you want to see less carts being abandoned, it's time to head over to Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/redweb. Go to shopify.com/redweb to let them know we sent you. Shopify.com/redweb. Now, Tom's recollections of that day and the vivid description of his encounter really stand out when you look across the range of UFO experiences. I mean, Fredo, we've covered many here on this podcast. And as we all kind of know, many fizzle out after you see a few lights, you capture some blurry images, you describe the shape. Sometimes you get the description of a landing, but otherwise they kind of fizzle out after that. And while his encounter is absent of course, the much desired tangible evidence, there is a truly compelling detail that remains. Again, Tom recognized a child in his brief memory while on that ship, Melanie Kirchdorfer, and it would just so happen that Melanie, 2 miles away, also had her own experiences when seeing this object. And again, I have to believe that these two didn't meet and plan a story, so it's very compelling to many that these stories line up so well.
It's very, someone else around the same time. Similar story.
Mm-hmm.
But so are we saying there's multiple UFOs or just the one that was moving from place to place?
It's a broad series of incidents, but my understanding is that this one aircraft is moving around because we don't have a solid timeline, but everyone and what they saw kind of lines up. And so this story will kind of answer that. I believe that it is one aircraft going around, essentially abducting children, is what it does seem through these stories.
Ugh, I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
It seems like, honestly too, it seems like you talk like UFO specialists and stuff like that. They talk about how sometimes, a tactic would be like they would send scouts down, they would do research on humans, etc. This is that just gives me that movie like initial scouting of humans and people before and then, to go back and to the mothership or go back home and be like, okay, this is the data we've collected.
And so then you question, will they be back? Will they be back for these set kids when they maybe grow up? What do they want? What's the motive?
Back for the planet.
Back for the planet, all sorts of questions. So Melanie's encounter starts in Lake Mansfield, and this is where Melanie and her family had taken a trip to Dairy Queen at the end of this particular day. And as her father is backing into the parking lot, the car becomes, much like Tom, engulfed in this bright light. And then he follows what appeared to be a huge metallic object flying through the air. And what's really interesting about Melanie and some of the other, another Tom, who we're going to talk about in just a second, Tom Reed, many of them are still alive today. And so many of them are still giving their encounters. I think Netflix's series, Unsolved Mysteries, explores this whole thing where we have interviews with that. Yes Theory on YouTube also did an interview with Melanie. And so we have some modern...
It's like a modern... day Unsolved Mysteries. They brought it back, no?
Yeah, they brought it back, and this was one of their episodes. So I assume Netflix owns that property now, and I think it's different than the one I grew up with, but still exploring these topics.
The host for Unsolved Mysteries was kind of spooky in itself.
Yeah.
He'd come on and be like, oh man, this man's really setting the creepy tone here. Like, ooh.
Yeah. He's in a smoky street with a trench coat.
Yeah.
I'm like, sir, that's got a different MO these days. I don't know if I want to catch a man in a trench coat in the dark. That was the series where I'd bunch into the couch and not look over it because I was watching it in the dark basement of all places.
Oh my God, no.
It was a double feature, that and then Buffy. And so that was the, if that was the price I had to pay, I'd squeeze into the couch crevice.
I feel like you didn't have to pay the price. I feel like you just come back.
Yeah, you know what? DVR that and come back. No, that's how I did it. I don't know why.
It was the primer.
It was the primer. It led to this. But yeah, so a lot of these interviews come from modern day tellings. And I think, that is something I want you to think about as we approach the theories. But as she's recounting this, she says she sees these lights and her father wanted to chase the object, seemingly determined to investigate what it is. And Melanie, her mother, and her sister are rightfully frightened, imploring him not to follow this thing. They're like, Ted, please no, don't go after whatever that is. But then the next thing Melanie remembers is levitating above the street, not in the car, but just on her own. She's unable to move anything but her eyes. And then, suddenly, she's on the ship. And at first, she describes that she is in a room on a table, and she describes the room as, I'm going to quote her here, metallic like glass, and it had a red-orange aura, end quote. She doesn't remember if anything was done to her or what might have been done, but then she ends up in a second room, which is kind of similar. But in this second room, she says she doesn't remember seeing Tom, who remembers seeing her crouched down, terrified eyes, but instead she does remember seeing several other children. And she claims that as her brief moment in this room goes on, she's seeing kids kind of vanish one by one. Until then, she herself wakes up. And when she wakes up, she's actually somewhere else. She's on the shores of a nearby lake with no one around her, and she says she has to walk home.
Oh my God, I'd be even more pissed off. You're gonna abduct
yeah, I'm
me
like, come on.
in the middle of the night, comfort of my own home, and then drop me off on the shore somewhere after God knows what you did. It's also, this is such a vivid eyewitnesses of this UFO sighting. It is so vivid compared to any other sighting we've talked about.
Yeah. That vivid nature, I think, is so compelling.
Mm-hmm.
But also, the more detailed you get, the more room for questions there is. And so a lot of people are saying, okay, well, if you ended up on the shores of this lake and you had to walk home, where are your parents in all this? How did they get home? What did they do? Why don't they remember that? Why didn't they come get you? Like, there seems to be some things not lining up.
Yeah.
And so when Melanie recounts this moment, she gets home and she says to this day, her mom and her sister simply don't remember how they got home. Of course, they must have finished driving home, but time disappears. It's like they just ended up at home and memory only began when Melanie finally got back. She doesn't really ever explain that beyond that. I mean, growing up though, she has since confessed that her parents seemingly never wanted to talk about it. They begged Melanie never to bring it up. They feared judgment from others who might kind of doubt the story and might think that they're nuts or whatever. And she even says in one of the interviews that she remembers being locked in the basement to just like her parents wanted to avoid hearing about it that much.
Right. Look, it rattles you as a human being to your core, right?
Totally.
When you're like, oh, okay, there are other beings of intelligence out there, to the point where they could pretty much do what they want. The technology is so far advanced from what we have and what we do. And then there's also just like the public facing stuff. You know what I mean? We talked about how we went on a ghost hunt, how like now I'm at the point where I'm like, yeah, no, I believe. But if I wasn't a person that was like, I don't care what anyone else thinks, then like,
Right.
yeah, I might be a lot more hesitant and being like, I believe that the paranormal is real because I had an experience that was vivid to me and et cetera. And then people might be like, I'm sure the people listening be like, sure. Okay.
Right.
And then be like, all right, this guy's like making stuff up now, or maybe he's lost it a little bit or whatever, but for not, I don't care,
Yeah.
But then there's the extreme opposite, right? Where it's just like, people that do care, because yeah, it's a lot to be put under that like microscope and that lens of people like judging you. And then all of a sudden you're marked as like the weird house that like believes in UFOs and everything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, you pull the belief system off of the subject. Just take at face value, this young girl went through something certainly terrified her.
Yeah, something.
And so that's kind of enough, even whether it was alien or something else, like that's clearly enough to rattle somebody.
Yeah.
I think what's really interesting about Melanie though, is that ever since these encounters, almost immediately up through modern day, she says she has faced several chronic symptoms that have long plagued her. In no particular order, she talks about lights going out near her. She says computers will blow up near her.
Well, I hate that. Computers are expensive as hell.
Expensive? You trying to sit down and just play a little game and then it just goes pop? She said that one of her coworkers, or maybe it was her assistant, had kind of witnessed this. That's the kind of stuff that I'm like, strap a GoPro to your chest. I want to see this. I would love to.
That's true. It's also like, why aren't you recording 24/7?
Yeah, because if it's repeatable, we're going to see it, right?
Yeah, true. I mean, at this point, I would just live stream the whole damn thing.
Yeah. The live streaming the long life of a UFO encounter survivor, I guess, or person, and just to see what, I don't know, because like this part I don't hear much about. People having long-standing issues, because she also said she had medical issues. Her sinuses were always messed up. Her stomach's always messed up. She has chronic buzzing in her ears that started then.
That's just age.
It could be age. That really could be it. I'm also thinking, sometimes you don't notice tinnitus until someone points out what tinnitus is.
True.
And so you're sitting in a quiet room and you go, do I have a high-pitched ringing in my ears? And you don't hear anything else, but suddenly you hear that whine. And you go, oh my God, I might have tinnitus. That's kind of how I figured it out.
Also, yeah, that a lot of times I'll just be sitting there chilling and I hear just like high pitched whine. I'm like, it's gonna go away though, right? Like it always does.
Right. I mean, it could also just be for the lack of any other stimulus, your body is trying to measure the world and feel it, hear it, taste it, smell it. And so maybe it's just like,
true.
It's just picking something up as a false positive. It's like room tone on a microphone. Sometimes it's just static.
That's a good point.
Anyway, so she says that, also her eyes haven't been the same. And I think all of this is really interesting, very, very vivid, but it's hard when you don't have a baseline to measure against, But this now leads us to the third individual we're going to talk about, Thomas Reed. And at the time of these other encounters happening, he's 6 miles further south, and he's also 9 years old. So, hey, let me just tell you, if you're living in Massachusetts as a 9-year-old named Tom, just look out for the sky. They're coming.
Right. Yep.
So 9-year-old Tom Reed, also Thomas Reed, it's spelled Thom. He was riding in the back of the family car as his mother is driving across Sheffield Bridge when he saw a bright light and a flying object above the car. Now, this is where I have another image for you. This is the second image. Actually, let me show you the next two images because I think both of these are relevant in their own way. The first image is young Thomas in front of the car, and the second image is the bridge that they drove across, which is now closed, but we'll talk more about this second image later as well.
Yeah, first image, young Thomas sitting in front of his car. You got the house in the background. It's like there's water back there, giant tree. Very like old school looking photo. Car's looking fresh. It's that old timey looking car.
Yeah, dude. Now you're breaking my brain. That does look like a lake down there, but it also looks like a white barn.
Is it? Oh, it does. It does look like a white barn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a white barn. I was like, is that the lake in a reflection?
There's some water around, so.
And then look at the other photo. Yeah, that's a bridge.
That's a bridge.
Like a Sleepy Hollow bridge.
Right. Or the one at the beginning of Beetlejuice, you know? It's just one of those old... But there's a name for these bridges. I don't know. There's something cozy and fall-like about them, but I forget what they're called. A covered bridge?
It's a bridge, but like, I mean, you could just walk past it, to be honest. You even have to walk over the bridge kind of thing. It's just more of a convenience thing.
Yeah. It's like someone slapped a house on a creek and then said, that's a bridge.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So this is where it happened. And a little spoiler alert, there's a plaque there on the right side of that image. I believe it's moved and has since been removed. We'll talk about all of that. But this is close to where the car encountered this object flying over. So keep this image in mind. I'll bring it back. But he's recounting this light. And there was so much light, in fact, that it appeared to almost become daylight inside of the vehicle for a brief moment. Then the family all describes this intense change in pressure, almost like they're underwater in some way. And then immediately afterwards, silence falls. There is no sound from whatever this object is flying over. It's emanating no sound. It seems dead quiet. But in addition to that, it seems that all the sounds of nature, all natural sounds of the water going by or crickets in the evening, completely go away. It just sounds eerily quiet. And afterward, the light grew brighter and brighter still, and the silence then is replaced with an eruption then of frogs croaking, crickets chirping. The sounds of night return after the light kind of swells. And that is the last thing Reed remembers before he's then seemingly brought aboard the ship. He then remembers being in an airport hangar-like building the size of a football field. And there he claims that he saw 2 alien creatures that resembled an ant-like bug. You know, instead of this normal, the gray alien with the big eyes and things that are small.
Lanky body.
Yeah, he said it looked like ants, which I wish we had sketches of what that would look like.
I know. I mean, the thing is, who's to say, the aliens that we see are what aliens look like? And who's to say we haven't been visited by different races of alien?
Sure.
We don't have to necessarily be visited by one specific type of alien. Could be other ones out there just like, oh, look at that. There's a planet, a little water planet. Go check it out.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely.
I didn't even think about that. That's wild.
Just like a little zoo, and you got just different planets from all over this galaxy bopping by going like, oh, what's down there?
Yeah.
We're just like, we're out here in the boonies of the galaxy, and they just happen to go, ooh, world's largest ear of corn. That's our planet, you know. That's like,
exactly.
Might as well stop and see that ball of yarn, you know.
See that big ball of water. That's a weird way to think of it.
Do you think, in the grand scheme of things, that if that's real and that's true, that we are kind of like North Sentinel Island, that we're just this island of people doing their thing that have just not been contacted by the modern world or the modern universe, and so aliens sometimes drop by, you know, it's like a drone flying over and then they leave?
It reminds me of Star Trek. I think it's Into Darkness, which was the
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yes, sir. Khan. Where in the beginning they were told by Starfleet not to like come into contact with the primitive civilization of a certain planet, and they end up showing their ship, and then the civilization is like drawing the ship now, and banishing their other gods or deities, and be like, we're focused on this, what we saw come out of the water, which was
USS Enterprise or whatever. Oh man, I forgot about that.
I'm a Trekkie. Yeah, I'm a Trekkie over a Star Wars person.
Dang. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I see it. Yeah, I can see it, that being us. Where it's like, look, they're not there yet. They're primitive. This would break their brains if we, you know, showed them some of the stuff or introduced them into like the Galactic Empire, whatever the heck you want to call it. That could be the case too, man. Which is just really weird. We're just so small. We think so mighty of ourselves.
I mean, that story you just gave is really interesting. It's based on a real story that I don't have all the details straight, so forgive me, Task Force. But basically, there was an island somewhere that I believe during one of the wars, some care packages would drop down and be accessed by these tribes. And in them hoping that more packages would be dropped after this time period, they would build grass replicas of these planes that they saw. And very similarly, almost like worshipped the arrival of these, hoping that this would bring people back.
Dang, yeah, see?
I think that'd be really interesting if we think we're so advanced, and then these aliens are just dropping by, but just briefly because it breaks laws or whatever. I don't know. I think that's fascinating, but
it's a very fascinating way to think about it, and I don't think we ever really think about it that way.
Okay, coming back to Tom Reed here, he is now in this football-sized airplane hangar-like building. And I'm going to quote him here because he remembers strange configurations in this space, and I love details. So he says, quote, "This hallway we had seen was circular with a Y configuration almost to control the flow of traffic. This one room had a bowed-in wall and was rounded. This was not something that you would have seen in 1969 anywhere else. I have no idea where I was, but I know that what I saw was very different than anything I'd seen today 50 years later." So this is him as an adult recounting this back, and it's interesting that that image stayed so firmly with him. Now, in an instant, after seeing all of this, he is back in the car. His family is all there, almost as if nothing had changed. However, something was different. While his brother was still beside him in the back of the car, his mother and his grandmother had seemingly switched seats. The mom always drove, the grandmother never drove, and the fact that suddenly, after all this flashing lights, being in this weird space and coming back, the grandma was now in the driver's seat. And so that kind of ends his encounter, but 50 years after the event, Tom's mother, Nancy Reed, decided that she would finally break her silence and share her experience from that night. You know, ultimately she feared ridicule, she feared judgment, but I will point out that it was on an episode of Netflix's iteration of Unsolved Mysteries that she finally broke her silence, and so part of me has to underscore the fact that maybe money's in play. Maybe it's because time went by. Maybe it's because the judgment is lowered because they're actually investigating. All of these things are on the table. But Nancy recalls primarily the same details. Of course, she didn't go to the ship, but the main details she adds is that she attempted to flee from the aircraft when she saw it as the driver. And when they were back in the car, she remembers swapping, and it appeared that 3 hours had passed without anyone remembering what went on. So that's as much as they have. From there, she remembers facing local ridicule over the next year. She was running a diner. A lot of people found that diner a comfortable place to share these stories. And ultimately, about a year after this encounter, she sold her diner and then moved just about 6 miles north to Great Barrington, Massachusetts, to not fully escape the community or potential ridicule. That's kind of the answer I'm seeing online. It's not too far away, but maybe just a fresh start in general without completely shattering little Tom's life.
Yeah, 6 miles away is not that far.
No, it's in the same county even.
Yeah, so I get it where you went, okay, oops, kind of a big mistake. After years and years and years, I can see it being like, oh, maybe I want some money off of this. There's this shows, here's an opportunity. But also, just as you get older, you know, the things that I thought were so important when I was younger, I'm like, I thought it was the end of the world.
Yeah.
Nowadays I go, nah, it's nothing. You know?
Right.
And I assume it's kind of in the same situation where she was like, well, if I talk about this is not a good thing to talk about. But then what, 50 years later?
Yeah, you know what? That's a great point. Perspective with age, you know?
Like, what am I scared of? And then, you know, then some of the backlash ended up happening, and you know, you're kind of right in that regard where it's like, well, now you have to move and everything like that because you're getting some ridicule. But yeah, man, time makes you forget.
Or just see things in a different light.
Oh,
you know?
1,000%.
A different bright beam that might suck you up. The last one I wanted to talk about, and there's not a whole lot of detail here, but a lot of people consider her one of the more respected experiences because she was well known in the community and, again, well respected at the time. And so a lot of people put a lot of weight in her experience. So that is Jane Green. She was a 42-year-old woman also living in Great Barrington, which again is at the south end of Berkshire County, just to give you some more specific locations there. But a lot of people from Great Barrington seem to see this aircraft or UFO. So she was driving home with a friend that night, and this is when she saw what she described as a huge bright light in front of the car. Very, very similar to everyone else. And she, along with several other drivers actually, all stopped their vehicles to observe this object. She's not alone, she's got a friend with her, but also some other vehicles. And she describes the object as a, quote, alien aircraft hovering at eye level. The craft was completely silent, which she found very unsettling, and she considered this the most profound experience of her life. She doesn't remember losing time, to my understanding. She doesn't remember being on board this ship. She just remembers seeing it, stopping to kind of take it all in, and that's kind of Bob's your uncle on that.
Again, just vivid encounters, but all of them are similar. Like, none of them really deviate far from each other.
They're all very similar, but I will say they all do start as that common pop culture version of the UFO.
True, the light and everything.
Yeah, and then evolve into this more nuanced, more unique angle with the ant-like creatures, with the children abduction, the teleportation and things. Now, some might say that the saucer-like aircraft is just more validity for what people are seeing, and that's why it all lines up, and others might say, well, you're being impressed upon by other sightings, and so it's kind of this contagious idea, and that's why you're seeing the saucer shape. You know, we can argue back and forth on that, and I'll kind of approach that in the theories from both angles. But before we get there, again, I love theories, but I think it's worth exploring the immediate aftermath and the recent year developments. So immediately after following this incident, of course, the county was kind of shook by the reports coming in, and it's reported that children began drawing UFOs in class, intrigued by what they saw. This, to me, either indicates a truly widespread event that all these children were a part of, or again, kind of teases that idea of a contagious topic and kids kind of, you know, like a viral trend are hopping on board.
Couple parents get abducted, they talk about it to relatives or on the phone or whatnot, kids hear, it becomes a talk of the town, and everyone wants to get involved, right? Everyone wants to have a story. And they're kids. The kids like they copy each other. They're easily influenced.
Right, absolutely. They're all doing the same Fortnite dance now, but
exactly.
this is instead a drawing. I mean, we've even joked about this on this show in the Lizzie Borden episode where we all kind of grew up drawing the same type of house. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we did.
And so, yeah, like sometimes things are just trends. And so, again, there's area for room here to talk about both, but let's continue, because what I found to be interesting is that on the night of the event, adults in the area not reporting it seemingly to police or news, but instead called local radio station WSBS, and they were describing what they saw in the sky. However, as I mentioned before, strangely, there are no reports of the police getting any calls about the object, and similarly, a local historian was able to go through archival copies of local newspapers at that time. And they started, I love this. They started from the morning of September 2nd, and they, for a full month after that, looking at daily newspapers, there is no mention of these alleged sightings. And so some say that this simply didn't happen, and that's why there's no reports. That's why it's not in, the newspapers. And some are saying that this might have been evidence of things being erased from the record. Because how could so many people have such vivid encounters seeing these objects and then not have it anywhere? Did the government step in? Did local police kind of not report things? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. That's when you get the conspiracy aspect of it.
Right.
Yeah, it could have definitely been wiped. And also, like, if you have all these people talking, you can see in a way to give credit to the event, right?
Sure.
Where a lot of people, I mean, how many times, right? Even with like the Zodiac case, it hits mainstream news, media, etc. Then everyone's copying, there's copycats, everyone's flooding in. I've experienced it too. And
right, yeah.
And I was abducted, and they cooked me dinner. My experience was different. It was more unique.
Yeah.
We had, it was a whole date and everything. People just embellishing and making stuff up. And so if it wasn't reported, and then, it makes it harder for people to copy each other, and it becomes word of mouth at that point.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. Now I'm just thinking about the romantasy novel, My Night with Bleeblorp, I was wined and dined and courted by Bleezazorp. I don't know what you guys experienced.
Bleeblorp is such a great random alien name.
Listen, she took me to the North Pole and I got to see the curvature of the Earth.
I'm in now.
I got to see the sunset 5 times that night. Here's the thing. I think you're totally right. This offers room for believers to say that there was something fishy going on. This offers room for the skeptics to say, then it didn't happen. That's the thing about this case, is that we might not ever know, and it all becomes a matter of what do you subscribe to? Because the actual tangible evidence is showing the absence of things, but could that be played with? I don't know. And a final note on that too, is because this was on radio, WSBS, they record all of those evenings. They all go straight to tape, or at least they did at the time. And it's been reported that the station manager at the time told listeners to call in, share your stories of what you're seeing that night. Kind of like the DJ reaching out and saying, oh my gosh, we're getting these calls. Let's make it happen. Like this is the topic of the evening. Let's
there
go.
You go. Yep. Topic of the evening.
And so they're going for it. They're indulging in it, and maybe that is spreading it already. And maybe this is how people that didn't have interface were able to hear about it despite not knowing one another. I'll put that out there. But what is interesting, and again, room for both believers and skeptics, is that the tape recording from that night, the moment of that broadcast, is untraceable. And it was likely taped over, which would have been standard practice at the time. But I'm thinking, selfishly, if something like that, something wild was happening, I'm like, let's cut, print, push to tape, let's keep that one.
Yeah.
But the fact that that doesn't have a record either kind of then means you have to trust whoever was there or whoever was running it, etc.
Yeah, you get into the territory of trusting, which is rough.
It's just difficult. It's just not firm evidence, and I want to believe that everyone's telling the truth, but I know they aren't. I know 15 people can't be the Zodiac killer when they're all confessing.
Yep, exactly. I
so
too am the Zodiac. Well, hold on, there was one.
Right.
Maybe
you're not even getting anything out of this. Right. Yeah, maybe 2 max. Yeah, no. It's a club. We got the Zodiac Club where we all go out,
do
some heinous stuff,
Exclusive membership.
Okay, so in recent years, Tom Reed has been very active. He's kind of become a celebrity of sorts in the UFO community. He's still talking very much about this, and he has been the most vocal about the Berkshire UFO incident and claims that he has been involved in several other extraterrestrial events since then. In 2010, he actually took a polygraph test and talked about his experience that night. The test did find him to be 99.1% truthful. However, as I've addressed on this show before, polygraph tests have their own issues. No one person's body responds physiologically to lies and truth the same way, and you just really can't take polygraph tests as hard scientific evidence. But I do think that Tom actually believes what he is saying. It doesn't mean it's fictitious, it also doesn't make it fact, but I do definitely think that he subscribes to his experience. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by BetterHelp. As seasons change and days grow darker sooner, it can be a tough time for many. This November, BetterHelp is encouraging everyone to reach out, check in on friends, reconnect with loved ones, and remind the people in their lives that you're there. And it almost always leaves people wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? Now, everyone's journey with therapy is personal and their own. And in my experience, I think the most important part is finding the right person for your needs. One of the nice parts about BetterHelp that I appreciate is how approachable they can make such a daunting task, and they help you find that right person. If you're looking to get started in therapy, BetterHelp can be a great place to start. BetterHelp therapists work according to a strict code of conduct and are fully licensed in the US. BetterHelp does the initial matchmaking work for you so you can focus on your therapy goals. If you aren't happy with your match, switch to a different therapist at any time from their tailored recommendations. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally, and it works with an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for a live session based on over 1.7 million client reviews. This month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it easier to take that first step. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/redweb. That's betterhelp.com/redweb. And this brings up, I'm kind of interrupting the recent years flow here because I just can't not talk about this theory. It leads me to the idea of false memories. There's a psychological phenomenon which I should have brought up on this show before. I'm not sure if I have. It's called confabulation, where someone produces a false, distorted, or even fabricated memory, yet they believe it to be true. And in this type of memory error, there is no intent to deceive. It's not malicious. It's not, I'm trying to lie here. But it's what might result from seeing something that you can't fully explain. And when you try to fill the gaps in explaining that unknown phenomenon, unknown object, you suddenly create details, and your brain does believe those details. And you can especially see this with children. They got developing brains. Their underdeveloped prefrontal cortex is responsible for assessing memories and monitoring memories, and they are more highly suggestible. And so, I'm inserting a theory here that I'll kind of talk more about, but there is a possibility that Tom truly believes what he is experiencing, that he might have saw something strange that night, and then the rest was his childhood brain filling in with vivid details, but he's not trying to deceive, but rather he is fully believing all of what he experienced, and separating what he saw versus what he might have made up might be impossible now. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, your mind is not always yours to be controlled. And then this just kind of seems like another form of it, right? Where your mind, depending on your emotions or how traumatic things were, it's just trying to either protect you, maybe fill in gaps. It doesn't have to be this nefarious thing or this thing for money or whatnot. It could just be your mind protecting yourself. People's minds and wills are different, have different strengths and weaknesses, and are all not built the same, It could just be this person's mind pulling a Charles Xavier and just blocking off certain things or reinforcing certain memories. And if your mind is doing that, then you're going to believe it to be true.
I love that you brought in the other ideas too. Is it could be a trauma response. It could be a fear response. Yeah, you're totally right. It could be a response to all sorts of things. And it doesn't rob him of his experience. It doesn't mean that he didn't see something strange that night, but it does start to offer a more vivid exploration of the events of that evening, rather than just saying, it's all a hooey, or, oh my gosh, it's all fact. It's much more nuanced. So I want to park the idea of confabulation for just a second as I wrap up the more modern details, but this then brings me to the monument here. In 2015, he organized a fundraiser to erect a kind of statue of sorts near the Sheffield Bridge in honor of what he saw with his family that evening. And again, I want to reference that image for you, that third image. It's the bridge once again, but you also see
The little monument.
yeah, the little plaque on the concrete plinth.
Pretty interesting to be like, my experiences with my family deserves a plaque here. It's kind of like, okay, sure.
Right, yeah. Immortalize my name, my experience, and not necessarily everyone else's. Yeah.
So that's an interesting maneuver.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
okay.
This came shortly after the Great Barrington Historical Society recognized September 1st, 1969 as an off-world incident, calling it historically significant and true. And this, through a rigmarole of complicated legalese, kind of made it become the first UFO incident case, and maybe the only one, that is considered historically and immutably true. It doesn't mean it's like it's real that it all happened, but just on the ledger, as documentation would have it, it is considered historically true. And I believe part of the story of either that and or getting this plaque, this monument set up, was that the governor at the time signed this document. And again, it starts to get a little hairy because it gets into the drama of this statue being removed in 2019 because it was on air quotes town property, but then somebody nearby is saying, no, it was on my property. It starts to get into the drama of that, and that's not worth exploring because it's kind of a distraction from the meat at hand. But that topic is out there if you want to explore it. Any thoughts or ideas as we dive into these theories to kind of once again re-explore or maybe answer the unknown?
No.
All right.
I'm going to dive right in.
Yeah. So again, confabulation, the idea that maybe these kids and or adults filled in the gaps after seeing something strange that night. The main wrinkle here, though, is if confabulation is a product of suggestibility, a product of these underdeveloped youthful minds, there were a number of adult sightings that also lined up with these other eyewitnesses. That would be the main wrinkle with that. But moving or segueing on from that is the idea that this might have been a misidentified man-made object. This is common and popularly what we talk about in these 50s and 60s, sometimes 70s era UFO sightings, you know? There were new jet designs, there were atmospheric tests, and there were prototype aircraft actively flying the skies like the U-2, the SR-71, and many of these might have produced strange lights and sounds that civilians wouldn't have recognized. Yes, they don't answer for the zigzagging pattern, they don't answer for the rapid rise and fall of altitude or bright beams landing on people, but that could combine with the previous idea, confabulation, where you started with seeing a very strange aircraft that was real, and you ended up building a greater experience in your mind.
Yeah, larger than life narrative.
Yes. And so that's kind of where my mind lands. They might have seen a yet to be declassified aircraft or something, again, they couldn't explain, and then filled in the gaps. And that doesn't mean it wasn't terrifying. It does mean maybe it wasn't necessarily aliens. The biggest wrinkle here is the missing time. That then trusts that, you can like obviously have missing memory of time, but if people are saying that in mere moments, hours were gone, that's hard to reconcile at face value.
True. But it could just be something that, again, they just kind of, their mind fabricated, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Fear can do a lot. And speaking of the psychology angle, we've talked about that too. Mass psychogenic illness, mass psychology, social contagion, the idea that someone saw something and then it spiraled. Perhaps local news coverage or WSBS is talking about it on the radio, and that creates a kind of feedback loop. So when somebody else sees something unknown, they're primed to escalate. Then they report, and it kind of stacks upon one another.
Right.
And then even after that evening, kids are drawing UFOs constantly. People are sharing what they saw. Did they see something? I don't know. Maybe I did. And so you can almost see this bubbling up, and maybe that's why it never hit the record, because it kind of bubbled up in the weeks afterward is a possibility. And then you have Melanie, Tom, other adults still surviving to this day, kind of it building more vivid details in their mind over these years. Again, I don't want to pretend to know what they're doing or explaining or rob them of any experience. I'm just saying that this is a possible theory to explain these things.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's a well-rounded theory.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you're in the midst of Cold War anxiety, we are in the era of sky watching. The space race is just now happening or culminating. 1969 is the year we landed on the moon for the first time, but satellites, again, the space race, there's a lot of fascination with what's above and what's beyond. And so all of these elements snowball into one another. Of course, you have ongoing government secrecy. Is it aliens? Is it technology? Or is it nothing? The secrecy, no matter what, always obscures the realm. They would never want you to know if it's aliens. They would never want you to know if it's an undisclosed aircraft. And if it's nothing, they'll still not give you answers because it's information. Like the government just doesn't hand out information if they do have it, if it's classified, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like an obfuscation layer that's always present.
I mean, 1000%. You know, I feel like there's so many things, either conspiracies or just questions that the general public has that the government could be like, oh, we have an answer for that. We've had an answer for that.
Yeah.
But it could be in the best interest of like the government or the people or both, or for protection of individuals not to say anything.
Sure.
And then just let it ride out.
And I mean, even with the recent drone stuff at the beginning of this year, end of 2024, a lot of people are like, well, yeah, it's just drones. This happens every few years where we see a bunch of drones, we all panic. And the government is not, I mean, for whatever reason, might not just be like, well, it's just drones, don't worry about it. They're kind of a little cagey. And so that only adds to it, right? And maybe that's because they don't know and they don't want to misspeak, or maybe it's, who knows, right? Or maybe it is something else. Maybe it's their drones, right?
True.
Who knows? Who really knows?
It could be literally every angle. You think
Every angle's on the table, yeah. And also not every government official knows everything. But
yeah.
I don't know. I think it's why it's always so compelling and so interesting and so ripe for conspiracy. But of course, the last theory to assess is the idea of this being a real UFO encounter. A lot of people point to the fact that these stories lined up, that they had such vivid detail that it has to be real to some degree. That not everyone had shared falsified experiences, and that maybe because of it being real, it was like the Men in Black arrived on scene and made sure it was kind of scrubbed from the record so that way, you know, something wouldn't be unveiled.
Mm-hmm.
But the main wrinkle there, as always, is there's no physical evidence. It relies on memory because of that lack of record. And so that's always kind of hard to reconcile, is just, well, just take it on faith, you know?
Yeah, that's hard. That's difficult. People lie. People, or even if they're not lying, they just embellish.
Because we're all storytellers.
Yes, we are.
Especially if you actually fall prey to maybe a false memory, you're not trying to do it. You know, even in analyzing sources for episodes like this, I can read through the lines of people embellishing, because when I look across, or when Kat is reporting and detailing and outlining across 15, 20, 25 different sources, she's going to pull the facts. And when I'm doing a second pass and looking at everything, I can see where the embellishments lie for source A, but never for the other sources. Or source B might say this, but no one else does. And so, like, I can see that. The desire to add is natural for whatever, you know, whatever the motivation might be. But ultimately, to me, while this particular case is ripe with amazing, terrifying details, I do believe that the Berkshire UFO incident likely began with a mysterious aerial sighting, some sort of UFO or UAP, during a period of intense public fascination with space, the anxiety about technology, and things of that nature. And then social reinforcement stepped in. You have the idea of memory confabulation to add to it, and this then built into community folklore, community myth, with strong personal conviction, but ultimately weak physical evidence.
Yeah, I mean, it's got strong stories, but there's nothing physical. I mean, how if you take a certain route, there's no reports even. You know what I mean?
Yeah, truly.
And so you just have to take it off this joint experience that various people had, which in itself is interesting.
It is very interesting, if nothing else, but the story of it is so compelling. And people have still seen aerial phenomenon in this area all the way up into the 2010s. I can't say for a fact in the recent 5 years here in the 20s, So weird to say that we're in the 20s, but I'm very curious, and I should have looked this up prior, and maybe as we come to a close, Christian, if you don't mind helping me out as we wrap the episode, I'm curious if there is any sort of prominent, or if there was in the 60s, any prominent bases, whether it be Air Force, military, or otherwise.
That's a good question.
Yeah, because along the East Coast, there are, and I mean throughout the United States, a lot of bases in general, and it's possible that, maybe one of these advanced aircraft were visiting or flying through or what have you. I mean, you're in Massachusetts, you're surrounded by several major cities, so.
Oh, it'd be crazy if like a handful of bases popped up. Because then it's like, why are you popping bases up in this area?
Yeah, why are you doing that?
There's always a way to question everything.
Always.
I do have a list of former military installations. Don't want to get lost in the weeds on proper dates, so I don't know if they were active during this time. But at least for current military installations, I mean, there are a number of joint facilities. There are some Army bases. There are multiple Air Force bases. There's a Navy center. So there's a number of military bases just within the state itself. And Massachusetts is a relatively small state, so it stands to reason they're close by.
Okay. Well, with that said, Fredo, this has been the very compelling, the stand the test of time kind of story of the Berkshire UFO incident.
The most vivid UFO incident I've heard of.
I mean, it's got the deets, dude.
Yeah.
It really does. I want to see that ant-like alien,
But yeah, do and I don't.
Is it like ants? Is it like those weird cheekbones from ants, or is it like Bug's Life where they're kind of cute?
It's probably gonna be from ants.
Okay, they're still kind of scary though, actually. There's something weird about, I don't want to picture a humanoid ant-like thing.
No.
Mandibles chomping.
Don't look at me, don't talk to me. I'm okay.
Talking with chemicals. You know what? PSA, always keep a pocket-size Raid can on you,
Yeah.
You never know when an alien's going to bop you up and you just need to spray that thing down.
Just pocket size. Always have it with you.
One of those mini ones. Hey, can you imagine though? It's like War of the Worlds. They're like, they die from the flu. But what if like a bunch of ants come down? They're like, we're advanced ants with ancient technologies to show you everything. Spray,
Dude.
We wanted to help humanity. And then they just melt.
Yep. All the people that are like
So
pest control, heroes. Every single one of them.
Orkin. Intergalactic. Dang. You know what? Orkin, you can sponsor us. You can be our intergalactic fleet of UFO defense. But now as we come to an end, Task Force, if you want to support us directly, you can do so. You can get this podcast ad-free. You can get a plethora of exclusives. They're coming out weekly at this point, plus an early look at all the stretch goals coming out. Head to redwebpod.com. That's the best way to support us. You can also get merch at store.redwebpod.com. You can also review us. Chuck us a 5-star wherever you listen to us if you love us. Breaking down the unknown each and every week, something different from true crime to unsolved mysteries and everything in between. But yes, some shout outs. We have our newest elite member of the task force with an amazing name, Cleef Bonk. We also have Buff Scientist of the Week, Alfonso Pangu. And then, of course, the hit list continues this week with our squonks. We've got Broman, Clint from PS3, and Tucker Did It, just to name a few. Thank you all so much for ongoing support. We will see you, man, with lots coming this week. Again, don't forget, now that we're over, go check out the Yorktown Memorial Hospital. Leave us comments if you see anything.
Right.
We're going to upload some uncut, untouched stuff over to the Patreon, so you're going to have lots of raw footage to analyze exclusively for you guys there for supporting us. But lots to mull over here. It's November, but the spooky season doesn't end here.
No, not at all.
All right. With that, Fredo, I'll see you right back here next Monday for yet another mystery.